All right, good morning all. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Chris Hunter. I am a program services specialist with Stop Waste. And just quickly, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Stop Waste, we are a public agency that helps Alameda County residents, businesses, and school waste less and use resources more efficiently. And in addition to our work around solid waste reduction, which as the name suggests, is a lot of what we do, Stop Waste also administers programs to promote healthy and energy efficient buildings, and we serve as the Alameda County representative to the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, or BayREN. Before I get started, I just have a couple of quick housekeeping notes. So we are using the Zoom webinar format, which means all attendees automatically have their cameras and microphones turned off. We will have plenty of time set aside at the end of the presentation for audience Q&A. So if you have questions during the presentation related to the content of what you're hearing, please use that Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get through as many of those as we can. If you're having like a technical issue, if you're having trouble hearing us or seeing the screen, there's a separate chat button, and so that's better for any technical issues. And then finally, this webinar is being recorded, and we do plan to send a follow-up email to all registrants by the end of this week with a link to the recording and a copy of the slides, as well as speaker contact information. So with that said, I'm so excited about today's presentation on heat pump water heaters for emergency replacements. So I'm going to start just with a brief overview of who BayREN is and a few of our programs. And then we'll turn it over to our panel with Jeffrey Liang from BayREN, Chris Badger from VEIC, and Ben Foster with Barnett Plumbing, who will all dive into the opportunities and challenges that heat pump water heaters present to plumbing contractors, and also share an in-depth case study of Barnett Plumbing's innovative pilot solution using loaner gas water heaters to complete this work. And then finally, I'll come back and just cover how you can get started with local and state incentives before we get to audience questions. And I will share the results of this poll. So looks like we have about half the room is contractors. So another portion that represent manufacturers and distributors. And then a handful from local and regional government agencies, and then just a couple homeowners and other. And so if you are in the other category, feel free to put your name and organization in the chat so we know who you are. Okay. So BayREN stands for the Bay Area Regional Energy Network. We are a coalition of 10 public agencies, including one from each of the 9 counties shown here, as well as the Association of Bay Area Governments. And BayREN is committed to promoting resource efficiency at the regional scale to help California meet its ambitious climate goals. So BayREN offers programs for a wide range of stakeholders, including both single-family and multifamily property owners, contractors, realtors, small businesses, and local government staff. BayREN is almost entirely ratepayer funded. So essentially, it means there's a line item on the second or third page of your PG&E bill every month that gets collected by the state and then reallocated back down to organizations like BayREN to provide these programs. So kind of like to say you are in essence already paying for all of this, and we just really want you all to take advantage. And BayREN also partners really closely with public agencies ranging from the city to the county, regional, and all the way up to the state level. And so there are 2 main BayREN programs that I want to just really briefly cover here because I think they lay some of the context for the rest of this presentation. So the main program that BayREN offers for single-family homeowners is called Home Plus. This really is geared towards the homeowner themselves who can receive up to $7,500 in rebates for making a range of energy efficiency and electrification upgrades to their home. This includes a $1,000 rebate for heat pump water heaters. And although this is mostly geared toward homeowners, and we offer like a no-cost advisor service to help homeowners make decisions and connect to other programs, this is only possible through the contractors that we enroll in the program. So in order for a homeowner to receive the rebate, they are required to complete that project using a contractor who is enrolled and participating in the program. And I'll share a little bit more information later on about how to begin that enrollment process later on. But we do have on our website a tool where homeowners can get connected to contractors who can complete the work they need and speak your language and serve the territory they live in. So it's really a dynamic relationship between BayREN and the homeowners and the contractors. And we are really excited to have you all online and hopefully can get, we'd love to talk to you more about how to get enrolled. BayREN has a second program that a second rebate for heat pump water heaters. This is a midstream program, which means it's an additional $1,000 for every heat pump water heater installed, but this one goes directly to the contractor. So the Home Plus would give $1,000 to the homeowner. This program would give $1,000 to the contractor. So total, BayREN offers $2,000 for each heat pump water heater installed. We don't cover the entire Bay Area with this incentive. You can see the territories here on the right side of the screen. This is through a partnership with 4 of the community choice aggregators around the Bay Area. But yeah, this layers on top of Home Plus, and so that's $2,000 total that BayREN offers. And it's pretty simple to enroll in both and take advantage of both of these programs. So, well, every company is different. I just want to cover a couple of the benefits of becoming a BayREN contractor and working with us. So really the first is that will help you generate more leads. I know that's contractors, from what I hear, are quite busy right now, and this might not be an issue at the moment, but things can change. And so we really want to help you generate as many leads, as many high quality leads as possible. And so I mentioned that BayREN has a Find a Contractor tool on our website where homeowners can get connected to you directly. We also have our Home Energy Advisor, which is a free consultation service to connect homeowners to contractors and other resources. And then finally, BayREN actively markets this program and leads informational and workshops for homeowners. We attend a lot of community events, and each county has a designated on-the-ground outreach representative who's really responsible for driving leads to the program. And so we're doing all this work behind the scenes to get homeowners into the program and direct them to our contractors. Second big benefit is we see that energy efficiency and electrification projects tend to be larger projects with, and in a lot of cases can have higher profit margins. And the BayREN incentives are specifically structured in order to try to encourage larger and more comprehensive projects. And so we're really looking for projects who are greater than the sum of their parts. So for example, through the BayREN Home Plus program, we have an incentive for high efficiency HVAC systems and a separate incentive for attic and wall insulation. If you were to do both of those in a home, there's even an additional bonus on top of that. And so we really want to encourage these large comprehensive projects that treat the home as a system and really work well together. And this tends to lead to larger projects for you. And then finally, BayREN offers ongoing training and support for our contractors. So we have a full-time contractor services manager, and that team is actually growing right now. And so we'll have more support very soon. And so they'll help you with enrollment and can also help with project level issues and rebate submission. We also have a library of on-demand training and continuing education videos that are available to our contractors. And then finally, we have a newsletter and regular communication with all of our contractors. And so as new local, statewide, and federal incentives become available, you will be the first one to hear about that from us, and we will offer support and information in getting you started with those resources as well. So with that, I'm excited to turn it over to our speaker panel. So we have first Jeffrey Liang from BayREN. Jeffrey is the BayREN Single Family Program Manager and manages the Residential Energy Efficiency and Electrification Rebate Program for the 9-county Bay Area since 2020. Previously, Jeffrey helped launch and manage several energy efficiency rebate and financing programs over the past decade in order to bring cost-effective and practical solutions to homeowners and renters in California. And then we will have, I'm just going to introduce all of our speakers now. So second, we'll have Chris Badger with BEIC. Chris is a senior consultant who manages VEIC projects that involve the design and assessment of emerging technology markets and efficiency programs related to high impact water heating, HVAC, and appliance efficiency. Over the past decade, Chris has been instrumental in establishing VEIC as a national leader in deploying innovative supply channel market strategies in smart thermostats, heat pump water heaters, super efficient clothes dryers, cold climate ductless, and variant refrigerant flow heat pumps. His expertise involves establishing effective partnerships among efficiency programs, contractors, and the supply chain critical to scaling new technologies and program strategies. And then finally, and our featured speaker today is Ben Foster, who is the Vice President of Operations with Barnett Plumbing and Water Heaters based in Livermore. They were awarded the Quick Start Grant through the Tech Clean California program, where they successfully ran a pilot program providing loaner gas water heaters to help people that needed emergency water heater replacements with a convenient, cost-effective way to switch to a heat pump water heater without hot water during the retrofit process. Barnett Plumbing has seen the financial and environmental benefits of heat pump water heaters and have shaped their business model accordingly. And with that, Jeffrey, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chris. I'll be fairly short because I think we want to all hear more about what Ben Foster and Barnett Plumbing has done. And likely if you are on this webinar, you know a little bit about heat pumps and what's coming, but if not, hopefully just a little bit of information as to what's coming. So first of all, especially here in the Bay Area, we're starting to see policy and regulation move towards essentially requiring heat pump water heaters for the future. I know with the codes and standards process, that's already a consideration for the next code cycle. And what happened last month, many of you may have heard that the Bay Area Air Quality Management District has adopted rules intended to eliminate nitrous oxide from residential and commercial gas furnaces and water heaters. And essentially by 2027, that leaves right now just electric options and really to the point, heat pump water heaters, as electric resistance is not as efficient. So we're already starting to see that stick moving people towards heat pump water heaters. Even more to the point, I would say, we are starting to see a tremendous amount of demand. In last year, we for the whole program as a whole for 2022, there was 845 heat pump water heaters installed for the entire year. At this point, we've already seen over, I think around 340 installed this year. And if you haven't heard from clients asking about the rebates and about heat pump water heaters, you probably will soon. What we and really the draw and the push is knowing that historically the people businesses who adapt to new technologies and are ahead of the curve are often the ones that are able to kind of ride the wave of increasing demand for the future. That's what we're seeing. That's what the phone calls we've received. And with additional incentives, people are already hearing about the Inflation Reduction Act, but I will briefly touch, and as Chris mentioned, there's some of the CCAs that we work with, and even the ones that weren't listed on that map for the midstream program often have their own programs. So it's maybe not 100% coverage, but pretty close for the whole Bay Area that there's some additional rebates coming from the CCA. And then we will talk, there's the statewide tech and SCHIP programs that will add another significant amount sometime this summer. I think Chris may mention it. So, and there are consumer awareness campaigns going on with Switches On, with BayREN, with the individual cities and CCAs. So we're really starting to see this move. And I think we're reaching a point where we're starting to see this tipping point of people moving to heat pump water heaters. So that's really all I wanted to kind of outline. I think we'll continue to see that increase in demand throughout this year and moving forward, because that's just where, not just regulation and policy, but market is moving. So thank you all, and I will pass it on to Chris and be available for Q&A later.
Thanks, Jeffrey. So as an introduction, I had the pleasure of meeting Jeffrey as well as Ben in person recently at the ACEEE Hot Water Forum that was hosted in San Diego. And this is a little bit of an encore presentation in that really there was a lot of excitement about it, and just excited to be able to share some of that with everyone today, and especially to have Ben back to talk about his specific effort. So next slide, Chris. So just as a quick intro, BEIC, we're a nonprofit, a lot of focus around energy efficiency and decarbonization efforts, working kind of nationally, specifically in a few individual states. But for today, really the focus is on two of the programs that we work collaboratively with, Energy Solutions and a broader team on Tech Clean California, as well as CalNext, which is a emerging technology program. But just I think this group is probably more aware of the tech program, and we'll talk a little bit about how that relates to this specific initiative. Next slide. And you can click right through these, Chris. One more. Yeah, great, thanks. So Tech Clean California, this is obviously a program that you're very aware of. As part of that, that's really a focus on market transformation for heat pumps, targeting 6 million heat pumps installed by 2030. And what you're all part of is I think the latest numbers is over 900 contractors participating in tech, 72% of them having installed heat pump water heaters, and resulting in over 1,500 heat pump water heaters installed in 2022. Part of what Jeffrey was referencing with Bay Area being a significant portion of that. As Jeffrey mentioned, that we're looking forward to having incentives back in probably the latter part of this year, and maybe the third quarter of this year. Just recognizing the significant participation that happened in 2022, and kind of running out of funding during that year. So really looking forward to kind of building some momentum back to that moving forward. But one element that is less, I'd say, prominent as part of the tech program, for probably all of you, is what they are investing in new pilots, but also in what we call the Quick Start Grant Program. And this is a competitive solicitation that's really just trying to bring in new ideas, and of which the Barnett Plumbing had applied and was awarded in the 2022 period. So in 2022, there were 11 projects that were selected, or awards that were provided. And you can see the full list here. We will be focusing on Barnett Plumbing, which is definitely a star within our group, but really encourage you, if you have an opportunity, to go to the Tech Clean California website and look at all of these individual projects and some of the summaries. And Ben will probably address this as part of his work, but just some of there's a field evaluation of 120 volt heat pump water heaters that is of particular interest, but a lot of great, multifamily applications for heat pump water heaters, and just really looking at how do we get to a broader market. And next slide, Chris. So in 2023, there's a new round of awardees that is just getting started. So again, I won't go through these today, but definitely encourage you to take a look at them, just because they might spur innovation in your own company or region or area that you work within, and might be identified potential partners that you can work with moving forward. With that, just the link is there below, and when Chris sends out the slides for everyone, please feel free to reach out, either through the link, but obviously feel free to reach out to myself or anyone else on the Tech Clean California program. And with that, I'll look to turn it over to Ben.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning. Is my video on? Am I good to go?
Yep, we can see and hear you.
Okay, great. So I am here to talk about this question of, do heat pump water heaters work for emergency water heater replacements? And this is, I think, one of the most important questions to ask and to answer. And why? Because 80 to 90% of water heater replacements are emergency replacements. So that means as a contractor, emergency replacements are almost all of my water heater customers. So if I don't have a heat pump solution for them, I don't have a heat pump solution really for any of my customers. In terms of, it was already mentioned, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District prohibiting gas water heaters starting in 2027, as well as California's kind of overall goal to be carbon neutral by 2045. This question has to be answered if it's 80 to 90% of the overall water heater replacements. So I wanted to just kind of paint a picture by telling a story to describe kind of, and for the contractors out there, this will be your day-to-day world, but to kind of describe and paint a picture of what it's like for the customer and the contractor going through the process of their water heater goes out, bidding, and what that looks like. So imagine a customer named Jason calls into Barnett Plumbing Monday morning, and he has a leaking water heater. So Barnett Plumbing schedules our technician, Rob, and Rob is able to be sent out to Jason's house in Castro Valley same day. So Rob shows up on site and he takes a look at Jason's water heater, and it's a 50-gallon water heater, gas water heater in his garage. He's got a sub panel in the garage, and looks like Jason is a prime candidate for a heat pump. So Rob builds two estimates. He builds one for a gas and one for a heat pump. He shares both of those estimates with Jason, and he explains to Jason all the benefits of a heat pump, how they're more efficient. He'll save money on his utility bill. It's got a 10-year warranty. It's better for the environment, and all these benefits. And so Jason's a little skeptical at first because he's not really familiar with heat pump water heaters. He was just thinking he was going to swap out what he had for something similar. But with all the benefits that Rob talked to him about, and he's used Barnett Plumbing before, so there's some trust there, and Rob seems like an honest guy. So he goes with the heat pump option. And so he says, I think I'll go with the heat pump option. When can I get this installed? When can you get started? And Rob says, well, we can have an electrician out here within probably 1 or 2 weeks. And then we can install the water heater the day after the electrical's done. And so Jason kind of stops and he's confused. And he's like, so are you telling me that I have to wait 1 or 2 weeks to get hot water? And Rob says, yeah. And so Jason says, well, what if I go with the gas water heater? How long, what will that look like? And Rob says, oh, we can swap out your gas water heater today and you'll have hot water before I leave in a few hours. And Jason says, I'll go with the gas water heater. So that's kind of a little story of what it looks like to present a heat pump water heater kind of in the current scenario. And the reality is, as a contractor, you're not going to even offer someone a solution where they have to go without hot water for 1 to 2 weeks. So that's kind of setting the stage. Stepping back just a little bit, I wanted to talk about what's up on the slide right now, which is kind of the overall considerations with heat pumps. And so one consideration is the cost is higher. It's going to cost probably $3,000 to $4,000 more to complete this job. there's the consideration of the electrical needing to have the 240-volt service, as well as the permitting for that electrical. And then you also have the complexity of adding another trade into the mix and having an electrician come out and having to coordinate that with the overall process. So I'll touch on all of those. But one of the biggest issues or considerations is all of those, well, the last two, potentially increase the amount of time before hot water is restored because of the electrical service. So if we go back to the story, and at the point where Rob, the technician, or excuse me, Jason, the customer, asked Rob, he says, hey, when can you do the heat pump? And now Rob, instead of saying in 2 weeks, Rob says, well, I can get you hot water today with a temporary gas water heater. And then within 1 or 2 weeks, we'll have an electrician come out, get the electrical done, and then we'll pull out that gas water heater and get you your permanent final heat pump water heater. In that scenario, Jason says, okay, I get hot water today. Let's do it. I'll go with the heat pump. So that is the model that we tested in this pilot program that Chris talked about. And that's kind of how it went. Basically, we were able to offer a solution to get emergency replacement situations, hot water immediately. And we were able to, due to incentives offered from BayREN and Tech and more local entities, we're able to offer it at a cost that was competitive to gas, really the same price or less. We're able to offer convenience of getting hot water same day. And there was an element of, with our customers, an element of trust. And so even though they might not be familiar, because it was competitively priced and convenient, customers often said yes. So this program that we have started, or the pilot that we ran through this grant, worked. I mean, that's the bottom line. So like the slide shows here, we provided the loaner water heater to get the hot water restored immediately. There was no additional cost to the customer. The overall cost of the job was comparable to a gas water heater, and the results were pretty awesome. So you can see here during the pilot program, we went from less than 1% of our customers converting to heat pumps to over 17%. The reality is it was much higher than 17%. That 17% kind of is including funding coming and going, or incentives coming and going during that window of our pilot, as well as us really targeting the best candidates for heat pump conversions. So kind of going back to the overall considerations of a heat pump and what solutions there are for the overall considerations, as been discussed multiple times, there's the tech funding, there's new funding that's coming online in hopefully the next few months that I think will be addressed later on this call. And BayREN, and also the CCAs. For the contractors out there that don't know what CCAs are, because I didn't know what they are, it stands for Community Choice Aggregations. And essentially what they are is there's companies out there that buy and produce energy that then is delivered by PG&E to your home. And so that's what those CCAs are, and they actually have their own rebates out there. So where do we go from here? Oh, I think I skipped related to permitting and that issue. Building departments want and need to streamline and simplify the water heater permitting process for heat pumps, like they are for water heaters. And so I just in the last 18 months, I've seen a huge improvement in the efficiency of permitting and really the awareness and familiarity of inspectors with heat pumps. But there's definitely some room to grow. But that's improving, and the more heat pumps that are installed, the easier that process will be. So where do we go from here? Loaner gas water heater programs are an essential way to overcome the emergency replacement barrier. And so we need programs like this available to contractors. And so that's something that's in the works through CalNext and other programs that are working on developing a loaner program so it's accessible to any contractors out there to help make it easier to install heat pump water heaters. So developing those programs, the loaner programs, as well as there are other solutions as part of the overall picture. Chris, I think, alluded to the 120 volt plug-in heat pump water heaters, and we've installed a lot of those, I think between 30 and 40 at this point, and they work. They actually work, and I can talk more about that if people have further questions, but that's another kind of solution option for emergency replacements, not in every scenario, but it's kind of another tool in the tool belt to deal with this issue. So yeah, I think I'm happy to, the rebate kind of landscape can be complicated because there's so many different ones that you can take advantage of, which is great. But I'm happy to be a resource for that. And my contact information will be up here. So feel free to reach out to me, and I can hopefully help you or point you towards people that are within these different organizations that want to help you. Like was mentioned, there's a contractor team within BayREN. So there's a lot of people out there that want to help you navigate this stuff as a contractor. And so I'm happy to be a resource to kind of point you in that direction. So with that, I will turn it back over to Chris Hunter.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben and Chris and Jeffrey. That was really fantastic. So I have a couple, I'm going to stop sharing. I just want to ask a couple of questions for the whole panel, and then we're going to come back to just very quick how to get started, and then turn it over to audience Q&A for the last 10, 15 minutes or so. But my first question is, I just really want to start by acknowledging that for everyone that this is not the most diverse panel we have here today. And this is really something that the building decarbonization industry struggles with as a whole. And so and we know that in order to meet all of our goals of going carbon neutral by 2045 and decarbonizing the Bay Area's housing stock in an equitable way, we know that we'll need to really expand the workforce in a big way and train a lot more workers who reflect the communities that they are serving. So for each of you, just quickly, how is your organization thinking about the need for a more diverse workforce? And what do you see as ways that existing contractors, program administrators, and or policymakers can create more opportunities for women, people of color, and other underrepresented communities to succeed in this industry?
I will try not to get on the soapbox on this, but given that I grew up in the Bay Area and the Taiwanese community, I know there's really a need to just get the information out there. BayREN is working, especially with this BACMed decision on potentially banning NOx emissions from gas water heaters and furnaces. This information hasn't really gone to the Chinese or Spanish speaking communities, or pretty much most of the other communities. It's been big news in Chronicle or other mainstream media. So that's something that we are working on first to generate, help build the demand for these technologies. And in Taiwan, whenever I go back there, everything is heat pumps. It's not that people don't know about them. It's just making the connections here in the Bay Area. So I also encourage anyone who's out there in the audience to reach out to me if they are, working on some of these solutions, and also providing trainings in language if possible, for contractors to learn about heat pumps, heat pump water heaters. So I will put my contact information in the chat. Welcome any collaborations.
Yeah, I would say from a contractor standpoint, not only is there a lack of diversity, there's a lack of skilled workforce, period. And I think that's a barrier for contractors. And we're actually looking at developing a heat pump water heater installer school, to train people so that other contractors have a workforce to draw from, to have people that know how to do this. And in particular, we're looking to bring people through the program that are coming from workforce programs for formerly incarcerated, former foster youth, and disadvantaged communities. So yeah, I think that, as a contractor, I would love it if there was just this like marketplace per se of people that are trained to install heat pump water heaters, because it's just hard to find good quality skilled tradespeople. So
Yeah, I mean, I think Ben nailed it. I think as a supplemental resource, Tech Clean California, there's, similar to what Jeffrey is mentioning, that there's a lot of, different materials that are available in contractor support. As part of that contractor support, they had been doing essentially a program supporting contractors, especially in, DAC communities, in giving them essentially, if they go through the training for heat pump water heater training, that they can receive a heat pump water heater for free to install in their own home. So just recognizing that lower moderate income can include the contractor community as much as anybody, and really getting them to experience heat pump water heaters firsthand, but also to see the benefits of it as an opportunity. The only other thing I'd add is that as part of the Inflation Reduction Act legislation that recently passed, in addition to the tax credits that I think we've mentioned, for more, say, moderate and above incomes, with tax liability, that there will soon be additional rebates for low and moderate income households, and more details on that will be coming out probably later this year, and how that will come from federal to state and then down to individual communities. And in addition, as part of that additional layered funding coming from the state, that there will be a lot of investment in contractors. And so definitely looking forward to some of the way that they're targeting funding, especially for low-income communities. So
Thank you. So my next question is really about, so Ben, you mentioned that the way you were able to initially run this pilot is through the grant you received from Tech, and that really is what made this possible. So I guess my first question is for you, just is this something that you think you will be able to continue doing even once that grant has finished? And then just more broadly for all of you, what do you see as, or what do you think it would take to make this loaner model scalable and something that can really be become standard practice for emergency replacements? And so I know there's a number of local government staff on the call today. So, what role can local jurisdictions play in regards to offering incentives, adjusting the building codes, permitting reform, et cetera, to really make this a more sustainable solution?
So from my perspective, as far as the loaner, one of the things that made it work was the additional funding, because the grant paid for the installation labor of the loaner. And so if that's not there, then there's an increased cost to the customer that then makes the cost of the heat pump above a gas water heater. And what I've seen is really there's an incredibly high conversion rate to convert someone to a heat pump if the cost is competitive if the process is convenient and they have trust with the contractor. And a loaner program works, but if it costs the customer extra for that loaner, they're probably going to go with a gas water heater. So we need more programs, whether that's through CCAs or through BayREN or tech or whatever it is. But this program needs to be expanded if we're going to hit the goals that we're trying to.
Yeah, I think one, Ben has just been exceptional in his engagement and obviously innovation in approaching this market opportunity. I would encourage everyone on this call, especially notably the contractors, that the more information you can share about how you build up the opportunity for customers and the economics for your individual business, about where the gaps are, say in funding, that will help inform programs, whether it's with BayREN or with tech, or even, we're trying to mentally understand how do tax credits coming through IRA legislation factor into the decision process. The one thing I would say that it's somewhat universal, and hopefully everybody on this call would probably agree with, is that the more that you can avoid an emergency replacement decision, the better it is. So that allows everybody, including the contractors and multiple trades, to have the time to do that work in advance, especially if you have an older water heater. Because then you can maximize the value of all the incentives and tax credits and really take some of that, emergency decision-making process out of, not forcing it during a time that's especially difficult for customers.
I don't have too much to add. I will say, we are definitely listening. We do have a lot of government CCA staff here, happy to take the lead of Ben and other contractors. We know that there's a lot of additional rebates coming, 3,100 to 3,800 coming this summer. Hopefully that helps a little bit with that cost equation. But the technical aspects, or how providing the gas water heaters, we're all ears listening, and happy to help in whatever way we can.
Great, thank you. Well, I have a lot of other questions I could ask. I want to just quickly get to our last few slides so I see a number of audience questions that I want to get to. Sorry, did Chris or Ben, did you have?
All I was going to say is that Ben has been installing some of these 120 volt heat pump water heaters, and Ben, maybe you could just talk about how that compares as an alternative.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to address that. So 120 volt plug-in heat pump water heaters, one of the differences is they don't have the electric resistance heating elements as like a backup if the heat pump isn't producing hot water fast enough. And so that's a little bit of a limitation. And because of that, the sizing considerations are a little bit different. And so to make sure that the customer doesn't experience impact to their hot water. And so we upsize the heat pump. I mean, really, if you're going from a gas to a heat pump, you should always upsize, but we kind of double upsize or upsize two times for a plug-in. So if you have a 40 gas, we go up to not a 50, but a 65 plug-in. If you have a 50 gas, we go up to not a 65, but an 80 plug-in. And when we've sized them that way, they work. We have not had customers that complain about issues with their hot water. They do what they are marketed to do. They work, they provide hot water, and there are no issues, and they're incredibly efficient. So they work well, but there are some limitations because if you're going from a 50 to an 80 gallon, they're bigger. Heat pump, there's a heat pump on top, there's space issues. If you have an existing 75 gallon gas water heater, a plug-in's not going to be an option for you. They're not big enough. But it's definitely a tool in the tool belt of the emergency replacement scenario. So yeah, it's definitely a good option.
Thank you. So just really quickly, I want to walk through any contractors who are not already a part of BayREN, just how you can go ahead and get started. And all these other resources that we've mentioned, from the tech program to the CCA programs, we like to view BayREN kind of as a one-stop shop. So I would encourage you to start with BayREN Home Plus program, and then from there we can refer you and get you connected with all of these other programs. But essentially, the requirements are pretty straightforward as long as you offer one of the measures incentivized by our program. The main things there are HVAC, domestic hot water, and then insulation, air sealing, and duct sealing. So if you offer one of those, you hold an active license in one of those measures, and serve customers in at least one of the 9 Bay Area counties, you are a good fit for our program, and we would love to have you. So the enrollment process is pretty simple. You just start by registering on our online portal, and then from there upload some paperwork, including a signed participation agreement and certificates of insurance. And then from there, we have 4 online trainings to complete. You can do these on your own timeline. They're about 60 to 90 minutes each. And then we will have our team come out and do inspections on your first 3 projects within your first 3 months. Only one of those has to be in person. 2 of them can be virtual. So fairly straightforward. Again, we have a contractor services manager who can really help you through this process, and also help you with any questions related to rebate submission later on. So we want to make this as seamless as possible. And we will be sending out these slides and a link to that portal later this week.
And I will also say we try to act as a central processing for all the other programs. So if you apply through Home Plus and you qualify for that midstream program, it automatically gets forwarded. We'll try to do the same with the tech program that's coming up, and once IRA is designed. So ideally, once you get through us, you get to, it's automatically submitted to the other programs as well.
Yeah, thanks, Jeffrey. And on that note, I'm not going to go through this whole list. Just want to let you know that we are not the only rebate program out there in the Bay Area. A couple of cities who have their own municipal electric utilities and therefore aren't eligible for BayREN rebates, such as Alameda and Palo Alto, they have their own rebates available. And then, as has been mentioned, a number of the CCAs have additional rebates that can stack on top of BayREN. So again, there is a lot of money out here, and there's even more to come at the federal and state level. The Inflation Reduction Act, there's rebates and tax credits. The tax credits are available now. The point of sale rebates, we're expecting to become available early 2024. So keep an eye out for that. And then, yeah, we're going to see a relaunch of the Tech Clean California program. This will actually just be for heat pump HVAC systems. That should be coming shortly. And then the self-generation incentive program, or SGIP, will have rebates for heat pump water heaters. That will be coming over the summer. And all of these will stack on top of BayREN, really make this hopefully completely cost effective, maybe even more cost effective than gas systems. So we're really excited about all of this. And again, I know some of these dates and information is still to come on here. So if you enroll with us, we are going to be communicating this and making sure that our BayREN contractors are the first to hear as information comes online. Okay, and with that, I see we have a lot of questions. So thanks. I see you are all answering some in the chat already. But okay, I see a question here. If we could get you partnered with an electrician same day, would that be a preferable solution? If not, why not? And I believe that's directed to Ben.
Sure. So that would be a good solution. Yeah, I mean, that would shrink the time frame at scale. It seems like logistically doing a bunch of water heaters each day, then we'd have to have tons of electricians doing work each day. And really, a heat pump water heater is typically, in our experience, depending on all the configurations, a 5 to 7 hour job. So that would still push off the heat pump to another day, even if electrician got there same day. And depending on how much electrical work needs to be done, like if the panel's on the other side of the house, you know, the electrical work could be more than a day's worth. But definitely it would help shrink that time frame.
Yeah, and I know one thing that we recommend as BayREN is, you know, when I hear from homeowners who have a water heater that's maybe 10 years old, so still good, but getting towards the end of its lifespan, so, you know, you can get your electrical work done now while your water heater is still working, and then when it fails, you can come in and replace that much more quickly. So that would be another option of just doing that kind of prep work ahead of time.
And I do think it's an interesting question to how much visibility electricians say have to the opportunity from a business perspective, and whether or not they're also aware of the incentives that are currently available through BayREN, you know, tech, as well as you know, the federal tax credits and future rebates. So a lot of money is focused on the electrification of homes, and so definitely electricians, if they're not aware, should be made aware. That's a very significant and growing opportunity.
Yes, and that's something that BayREN as a whole is trying to do some outreach to electricians so we can start making those connections.
I see a question here from Mike. Again, I think this is aimed at Ben. So based on your scenario, each loaner needed to be in the home for approximately 2 weeks. Given that, how many loaner gas units did you need to make the program work for the 127 you installed over the year? Long term, have you calculated how many units a company of your size might need to keep in rotation for a program like this?
So for the pilot program, when we did 127 loaners, we had about 40 loaner water heaters that were in rotation. And so, I mean, there's a lot of variables that would impact it, you know, as far as how big the program is, how many water heaters you're installing every day, and then depending on your electrician turnaround time. So we've done some modeling, so we have some ideas, but I don't have specific numbers.
And a related question here, in addition to how many you're stocking, how long are these temporary water heaters using? So are you getting rid of them after X amount of uses, and are you disinfecting them between uses?
We are not disinfecting them. We essentially use them until they fail. So I would say they can be used 4, 6, 8, 10 times. And yeah, we just continue to use them until they don't work anymore. And we swap them out.
Okay, question from
One related question, I think, as Jeffrey mentioned about the legislation or the laws essentially changing in order to prevent gas appliances in the Bay Area, that the question about would loaners or something like that be allowed under that in order to give a temporary reprieve. So just highlighting that's a discussion point for future consideration.
So I see a couple of questions here about considerations with heat pumps, kind of from the homeowner's perspective and the sales pitch. So one is a question from Ben: how often is noise from heat pump water heaters a concern for homeowners, either before or after install? And then related, where did this go? What solutions are you implementing to deal with space constraint issues? How often do you see the need to relocate water heaters to accommodate heat pump water heater space needs?
So related to the noise issue, you know, it's something that we take into consideration as we're bidding it, so that it's not a aha moment after it's installed. So it's a discussion that's had as far as how much noise it creates, where the water heater is located. And then also part of our installation process is we use sound dampening and vibration dampening foam blocks, as well as rubber, that are placed in between the tank and bracing at like kind of key vibration transfer points to try to eliminate the transfer of sound into the walls and into the home. And we've had pretty good success with that. We have not had many issues with sound when we take those kind of steps to do the sound dampening. And there are different models that are a little bit quieter. So that's also from different manufacturers. And so that's something that can be considered if sound is extremely high value to the customer, or quietness. So yeah, that's what we have done. As far as relocation, you know, ideal scenario, it's in the garage or in a basement. Space issues typically come when it's in an outside closet. There's also air circulation issues because that's how a heat pump works. It pulls heat from the outside air, and so you have to have fresh new air circling. So yeah, if there's an issue where a water heater doesn't have space or doesn't have ventilation, one option is putting louvers on the door. Another is, depending on where it's located, removing the door, and another is relocating the water heater, which does add some additional cost, obviously, to run water lines to relocate the water heater. But yeah, I think probably the most difficult solutions, which are pretty uncommon, is if the water heater is in the middle of the house and the house is on a slab and there's no attic space above. That's a tough one, but not insurmountable. There's just additional cost involved. And I would say that's the minority of installations.
Okay, so we're almost at time. Just for the last question here, this is actually more aimed at Jeffrey and Chris. So we have a question from Christine. Who do you envision administering this type of program on a large scale, since some entity would need a warehouse to store these loaners? And then a related question from Newport, does BayREN envision funding a water heater loaner program for the 9 counties?
I would say we're open to it. I think, you know, given that we haven't been, and maybe a couple others have just started this, happy to set up more discussions with contractors to figure out, you know, where geographically, how many do we would have to have, what kind of grant funding we could get for this. And, you know, especially with the advent of the 120 volts, you know, how many might start using that as a scenario. So happy to continue that discussion.
Yeah, I don't think I have much to add to that. Just that I think, you know, as Ben would probably say, that the equipment ownership is in all likelihood going to continue to live with the actual contractor. And Ben has found some resourceful ways of trying to get that cost down. And I think longer term, you know, what I think everybody is waiting for is the kind of the incentives, new incentives to be in place, kind of visibility to contractors, understanding of the federal tax credits and just how the economics work. So again, as I said earlier, please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone at Tech to talk about your own particular situation and where you're located, especially if you're in a DAC community, because it all makes a difference to us to try to support people in the right way.
Okay, well, with that, we are at 10 o'clock. Thank you so much to all of our wonderful panelists, and thanks to everyone again for giving us an hour of your time on this Wednesday morning. So just a reminder, I will be sending out a follow-up email with recording, the slides, and speaker contact information. I believe all of our speakers are happy to field additional questions. I know we didn't have time to get to all of the Q&A here, so if we didn't answer your question, please reach out to us. I think we are all happy to continue this conversation. I think it's a really exciting approach that we want to see more folks try out. So with that, hope you have a great rest of your day, and keep an eye out for an email from me in a few days.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Chris and Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.